How can we engage users with AI to boost productivity while minimizing risk?
I'm Alyssa Blackburn.
I'm Mike Loader. Tech Edge starts now. Hello everyone, good to be with you. Welcome back to Tech Edge, presented by the team at AvePoint, where each episode we delve into the latest industry trends for business IT and their significance in today's ever-changing landscape. Now, are you ready for the AI revolution? It's well underway, and today we're exploring the essential trends and of course those shifts that every business leader must understand in order to stay ahead of the curve. Now, this is an interesting one, Alyssa. We're talking a little bit about AI-generated images. We see it in the news.
It is, definitely. And you know that I'm a big fan of playing around with AI tools. I use it a lot in my work. Recently, I decided that I needed some new headshots. I actually didn't decide that. Somebody told me you need to get new headshots. And actually, I hate having my photo taken with the power of 1,000 suns. So, because I'm a genius, I thought, I know what I'll do. I will use AI to generate some new headshots.
Brilliant. It's 2024.
Exactly. I thought the technology's there. Lean in, Alyssa. Lean in. And unfortunately, what I got wasn't really quite what I was looking for. You can see here the middle one, amazing,
First
loved
glance,
it.
not bad.
Nailed it. After that, we went downhill pretty quickly.
There's your Instagram photo on the right there.
Exactly, yeah, absolutely. I do enjoy the single arm going into two hands, definitely in my 1950s housewife look.
There's subtle differences. They're not bad though, but yeah, they're not quite right.
I would like to say I do have two working hands, but our next guest is going to talk to us a little bit more and I think really explore some of the challenges that AI is bringing, particularly in a world of deep fakes, but also how can we use this, maybe not to the extent that I did, but how can we use this to get better outcomes for our users in the workplace? So I'm really looking forward to this discussion. All
right, well, let's not muck around. Joining us now is Steve Odegaard, the Chief Information Security Officer at Neat. It's good to see you. As we approach 2025, what are some of the key workplace trends business leaders need to be aware of when it comes to AI? Tell us what you're seeing.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here, so thanks for having me. When it comes to workplace trends, I think there's a couple areas that comes to mind. One is we're still talking about hybrid work. I think this is still a challenge with many companies, and it continues to be a challenge, and I think will be into next year for sure. For example, businesses in the public sector, banking, even tech, they're all pushing for this return to office, which makes sense, right? You need that. The face-to-face activity with people. In fact, the occupancy levels in the Australian central business districts, they reached, I think they peaked 76%, which is up from last year, a year ago, about 67%. So you definitely see this trend, but despite that trend, you still have to deal with companies needing to adapt to this whole hybrid work model scenario. People might be coming into the office part-time, so you still have to kind of deal with this change in hybrid work. I think another trend is pretty much what you stated. No surprise here, with artificial intelligence. Both AI and machine learning, I mean, they're continuing to gain traction. I don't think we've even discovered, all the possibilities with AI by any means. In fact, 63% of the Australian businesses are using some form of generative AI, thanks to like Copilot, Gemini from Google, ChatGPT, whatever. They're all, they're extremely user-friendly and accessible, almost too accessible for my liking. And it's something that companies need to be aware of.
So Steve, let's talk about that, because obviously we saw my insane images just a moment ago, but we know that AI and deepfakes in particular are becoming increasingly prevalent in the business world. Where, obviously we're seeing this in the media a lot recently with, elections going on all over the place. What are the potential risks and benefits associated with these technologies?
Yeah, great question. From a benefit perspective, I think there's a lot. I mean, from my background being in security, there's absolutely no way you can do security, especially detection and response to cyber threats without something like AI. It's just not humanly possible. So, and that's been in the industry for several years. But we are seeing new things like virtual assistants popping up, training simulators for education, for example, all thanks to AI and the advancements from that side. But like with any technology, there's always abuses, and unfortunately, like you mentioned, deep fakes. They're getting much harder to identify. Earlier this year, we heard about cyber criminals posing as a CFO, and they stole $25 million. It's crazy to think of that. I'm from the U.S., and obviously the upcoming elections, we've seen tons of deepfakes happening across the board. So I think the question I always bring to the table is, how do you manage the risk today? There's kind of limited solutions on detecting deepfakes, accurately. But I think rather than waiting, companies should look to invest in even existing technologies. Solutions like secure identity platforms that can help provide more assurance that a user is who they are, especially when they're using like real-time video collaboration or what have you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting. I remember my first time using ChatGPT or image generation and actually feeling, as you said, it's such a powerful tool. I almost felt like I can't have this power. This is too much. But a lot of organizations and consumers have real concerns about the risks of AI. What should businesses be focusing on to keep themselves and, of course, their consumers protected from this power?
Yeah, I think there's several areas I think here to focus on. One, I think companies need to be transparent. I think it's important that they disclose and make it public, how they use AI in their products. As an example, at Neat, we use AI in our products for the high quality video and audio capabilities. But we're going to sit down with customers, or we're going to provide them assurance that their data and privacy is not at risk. I don't know how a customer can actually, make an informed decision without having that knowledge of how AI is actually used. I think a second area that's often overlooked too is employees need to be aware of AI deployed in their own organizations. There was a really interesting Gartner research that came out. It's predicting by 2028, 40% of large enterprises are going to be using AI to measure behavior of employees and just like overall sentiment. So companies need to communicate, the purpose for the AI and in order to build trust, for example, with employees and employers. And then I think finally, another area that we can't forget is, companies shouldn't forget about vetting their own solutions, even existing solutions. Last year, Product A or some SaaS app didn't have AI. This year they do, and it seems to be very accessible. So I think we have to rely on like a strong third-party risk process to make sure that you're vetting these things and understanding how they impact the organization. Again, especially from a security and data privacy perspective.
Steve, earlier you talked a little bit about hybrid working, which is something I think is really interesting, definitely. But this is something I know that a lot of organisations are struggling with. I know it's something that a lot of employees really want. They don't necessarily want to return back to the workplace full time. But what are some of the best practices for implementing, do you think, a hybrid working model? And what are some of the challenges that businesses are facing in trying to do that?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it starts with guidelines and policy. I don't mean to throw the P word out there, but it's something you have to do. You gotta establish it. You gotta at least set the rules of engagement, right? So you want to identify, for example, maybe there's certain roles that are eligible for hybrid work, and that should be communicated. You should set expectations on, how you communicate, what tools you should use, when people should actually be available. So I think it's a really important aspect that managers need to work with their employees, determine what's appropriate when it comes to, am I going to be on site or am I going to be remote, what have you. There's some companies that actually allow employees to work from anywhere in the world. So in either case, I think having that sense of setting expectations up front is really important.
Yeah.
And then I think another area that's maybe kind of obvious, but it's investing in the right technology. Something that we've done at Neat from the beginning. We're 5+ years in the from being a startup to where we're at today, and we specifically designed and built our products to be easy to deploy, support and use. And if it's too complex, forget about it. You're not going to get user adoption. It's just going to be very difficult for people to want to use that technology. So I think companies have to think about investing in modern solutions. They got to say goodbye to maybe outdated video technologies because it's just not going to cut it, in the end.
But my Windows 95 computer still works just fine.
So does your typewriter, Mike.
Steve, sorry to jump in, but can you share some examples of how businesses are leveraging modern video collaboration tech to boost this productivity and, of course, drive innovation?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a good case example that we went to the Royal Australasian College of Surgeons. I don't know why it's hard for me to say that, but hopefully I pronounced it right. But it's a nonprofit that they facilitate training for surgeons. And they were looking for a very flexible and easy collaborative solution to use with Microsoft Teams. So we came in and provided their surgeons and surgeons in training really flexible technology that can actually move between spaces based on their needs. And what the technology was, it allowed for that uniform and consistent experience, regardless of what device they had, the software platform, or even work location. And it was really, I think, something that a goal that was really well achieved with Royal Australasian.
And certainly I'm pro having surgeons be trained. Same. So I'm very much on board, very much on board for that one. Steve, just to wrap up, tell us a little bit about how you see video collaboration technologies evolving and what new opportunities they might represent for business, particularly when we're talking obviously about hybrid work and things like that. Like I've been a remote worker for 10 years now.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. I was doing it before it was cool. And then everyone else was like, well, she's doing it. Let's all jump on board. But what can we see in this space and how can we use that to bring hybrid working environments and remote workers closer together so they do feel like they're part of that collaborative team?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think there's a lot of opportunity in the future. When I look back and think about video conferencing, it's been pretty mainstream since the early 2000s, and we've seen a lot of evolution, right? But I think we're due for if I want to call it a revolution. It's something that at NEAT we're very excited about introducing, for example, third-party applications beyond the typical Zoom and Microsoft Teams, in order to boost productivity, create more efficiencies with work groups, really to address a lot of the hybrid work scenarios we've been talking about today. What's nice about that is we released what's called NEAT App Hub, so you can deploy an app on a NEAT device independently or with Microsoft Teams or Zoom. So for example, you can install a resource booking app or a whiteboarding app that you can actually connect to the meeting, so everybody can actually see what you're drawing. I mean, I remember this years ago trying to do this on a whiteboard, or it just didn't work. So now we have the technology to be able to do this, and I think this is really exciting. We're even looking at the possibility to allow customers to bring their own custom apps. So I think in the end, this is really innovative. It's going to allow you to leverage your investment in your new technologies. Extend the functionality of just, of the video platform to improve everything from ROI to just really, I would say, a great user experience.
Yeah, absolutely. It's exciting times ahead. Steve, I want to thank you for joining us on the program, outlining a little bit more about AI and the future of this technology. It's interesting times to be alive. The future is now.
Thanks for having me.
Again, the future is now, Alyssa. I feel
absolutely.
Like it's all happening.
Yep, absolutely. And I'm old enough to have seen the future in the past as well. So.
I mentioned Windows 95. I was there.
Proving your cool chops again.
I was little, but I was there. Guys, thank you for joining us on the program. Hopefully you've learned something from our discussion today. This is Ticker. We will, of course, be right back. Don't go anywhere.
You're watching Ticker. We'll have more in just a few minutes.